Welcome, everybody, to the first live session for 2022. And what a year it's panning out to be. So thank you for joining us. Excuse me if I'm a little bit distracted. We've got about 85 people and they'll all come in bits and pieces. So I just have to slowly let you all in. My name's Jackie Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for BN Multi. And each month now we meet on the page with different topics, and they're generally in line with the challenge that we run in the group every month. So if you're one of our group members, you'll see at the start of each month we have like a umbrella topic that we announce, and we often give you a download so that it gives you something to work with throughout the month. This month we're talking about food diaries and journaling. They're similar but different, and I'll explain what the perks are of firstly food diary and why you might look at doing that, but also journaling. And I'll just ask to unmute. Tonight, I've got a surprise guest with us. Kerry has joined us from the Healthy Party Girl, which I just love the name of and it's nice to see you actually.
It's good to see you.
I know. So thank you. It was an impromptu actual invite. So it's just come together really nicely at the end of the month. So Kerry is also a clinical nutritionist and graduated at the same time I did, and also works in the hospitality industry. What she doesn't know about wine and food, you don't need to know. So it's a beautiful blend of this whole mixture of personal development, clinical nutrition, and the love of good food and wine. So you can see why we're smiling. But on top of it all, Kerry's doing at the moment a journaling course, if you like a free content intro course to looking at journaling and why you might, sorry, everyone's coming in still, and why you might explore that. So we'll get on to that. And what we wanted to do tonight was the two of us talk about why you might do a food diary to begin with, as far as keeping on track and losing weight and doing all that sort of stuff goes. And then we'll talk about journaling on top of that as well. Feel free while listening to post any questions or comments you have in the chat. I'll just get you all to mute your microphones if you can, because quite often we get a lot of feedback. And let's get started. So looking at journaling, sorry, I've just got something I need to pull up here. Food diary, there's reasons we do that, and they're quite broad, and they might be for different reasons. So people who have reactions to food or sensitivities, or even they're leaning towards certain foods all the time, often will get you to keep a food diary. It's simple. It's what are you eating? When are you eating it? But it's not only like the facts about the food. It's more about like, how are you eating? Where are you sitting? Are you in the car? Are you stressed? What are you feeling while you're eating? And then also, what do you feel after you're eating? So it's a great way of really looking for patterns in what you're doing, firstly, and also patterns in how to do more of what you would like to do and also less of what you don't want to do. So a lot of it's about behaviour change as well, and that's why I got Kerry in, because she's really good at bringing that part to the fore. Kerry, what are your thoughts on writing things down?
Absolutely. When it comes to not just keeping yourself accountable, but also becoming aware of what patterns are, I think that it's really easy for any of us to kind of say, oh, I think I eat enough veggies, or I think I get a good balance. But then when you actually have a look at what you've written down, it doesn't quite tell the same story. So it's always great to write things down so that you can get a really clear view of kind of the lay of the land, as it were.
It does. It kind of keeps us honest in a lot of ways, I suppose, or it just highlights, often people, and you'll be the same, clients come in and I'm like, tell me how you eat. And they go, oh, I eat really well. And that's always good to explore. And when someone says I eat really well, but I'm here because I've got problems either with my health or I'm carrying more weight than I want to, that sort of stuff, I will often talk about what is eating well, as far as that person goes. And that gives us a lot of work to work with as far as, is it that it's just portion sizes that are too big, or is it that it's too frequent, or are you too heavy in carbohydrates and that sort of thing? And then from there, we can get even deeper into what's your body doing with those foods? Are you reacting to them? Is that where the reflux is coming from, that kind of thing? It is an interesting area to kind of delve into. And I think a lot of us, if you look at the government guidelines for what eating well is, it's really easy to think that it's easy to feel that you're doing a great job. But when you look at the food industry that's behind all of that, it's sometimes it's cloudy. And even when you've done a degree in food and labelling and all that sort of stuff, it can still be a bit cloudy. And it's changing all the time.
It's so true. It's so funny because it's, eating well and eating just habits in general change from person to person. And it's not just the numbers that we get out of a food diary. It's, as you mentioned, the symptoms and the how you feel in your body and anything that might be having a reaction and things like that. And the government guidelines are a really great example of how that one size fits all picture can work really well for some people and then really not work very well for others. So if we're trying to see really what the picture is there, then having as much information, numbers, and descriptions and feelings and that sort of thing, then that paints a fuller picture for us as clinicians.
Yeah. And talking like fuller picture is a really good way of putting it, because as much as you can put down what you ate, sorry, I'm echoing. If you put down what you ate and then you've got a bit more information around it, sorry, I don't know why that's happening, it does lead you down the path of what is really going on. Sorry, trying to work out where the feedback's coming from. It's not anyone.
I think we have
Claudine, there we go. Gotcha.
Awesome.
Mute. Sorry. Yes, it's totally distracting when there's two of me. It's bad enough when there's one. And so, yes, exactly. It's opening that up to then exploring, is it the food we need to look at? Is it where we're eating? Is it who we're eating with? Is it the understanding we have of food and the habits, or is it the actual food and how it's reacting in our bodies as well? Harvard have done quite a lot of work on why food diaries are effective. And there's good research to say that people who even just track what they're eating without examining, the deeper stuff that we're talking about, even just doing that brings your attention to, what you're eating, how much it was, and gives you that reference of front of mind, I think, and keeping that, not keeping us honest, but keeping us aware of what our goals are. And I think that's the end game, is setting goals and making them workable, and then working out how do we achieve those goals. Because a lot of the time it's like this time of year we're setting New Year's resolutions. Don't start me on that. But it's like we put them out there, but then how do we back it? And if you don't write it down, I think, and have somewhere to go back to, it kind of gets lost. I think we all get busy. But Kerry, do you have any good ideas on that kind of stuff? I'm not great at, I'm good at keeping my mind on things. I'm not really good at writing things down, and I'm really not good at remembering to go back and say, and reflect. I think that's what the word is reflect on. Yeah. Why did I start doing this in the first place?
Exactly. And the why did I start doing this in the first place is really the key here. There's a whole number of different practical ways to ensure that you're diet diary or your food journal or whatever journaling practice you're doing stays front of mind. And that might be having a reminder that pops up on your phone or your computer. It might be having a set time and stacking that journaling habit on top of something else in the mornings or evenings, so that when you have done one task, you automatically get that cue that you need to do this practice as well. It can be, having that journal sitting on your desk at all times, so it's always that physical cue. And there are so many other tips and tricks that you can find that might work for you. For me, the connection to the why is really the crux of it, though. I think when we're coming to any kind of major change, whether it's the New Year's resolutions or a really big goal that we want to meet,
whatever you want,
or anything like that, if we're not doing it for the right reasons, then it's really hard to stick to it. And journaling is one of those practices where you can really connect to why you're embarking on a challenge in the first place, whether it's for your health or whether it's financial or personal or career goals or anything like that. So the way that I use journaling is to really connect with the emotions behind the actions. And that can come down to, where we spoke about the feelings in the body when you have food intolerances or eating things which don't nourish you in the right way. There's another layer to that as well, which is what is the emotional situation that's going on behind these choices that I've made, whether that's maybe I'm feeling lonely and I want to eat something for comfort because it will comfort me and remind me of home, or maybe I am feeling really stressed and so I want to choose something that will address that, or maybe I'm feeling any manner of different things, and we'll have different food habits that will go to meeting any of these emotional needs. When we start journaling about the emotions behind these choices, then we can start to address, where are we abandoning ourselves with these food choices that are not ideal for our health, and what is it that we can do to then catch ourselves in that moment and change how we nourish ourselves and comfort ourselves and self-soothe without choosing the options which are going to be contradicting our goals for our health and otherwise.
I'd love to, just explore that, how, like you've obviously, and I've read that you have also implemented journaling for most of your life at this point. How did it start for you?
When I was a kid, I grew up outside of Perth, about 45 minutes. So I guess it would have been late 80s, early 90s. There wasn't a whole heap out there. The development hadn't quite reached that far. So our house was, a bit far past the end of the train line. And it was a pretty lonely upbringing at times when you've got, blocks and blocks of land in between, the next kid. So I spent a lot of time doing creative things and journaling, and it was kind of a bit of a creative, bit of a comfort. And a lot of it was kind of that Dear Diary or this what happened today, or imagination play and all of those sort of things. And as I got a bit older, I dealt with childhood bullying, which continued on through high school. And we moved from Perth to Melbourne, and there was a lot of, changes that happened in my life. And I kind of chronicled that throughout my journaling. And then as I started to get a bit older and teenage and hormones and, there's really cringe poetry in there and, essays about boys and everything. And then you start to see this development happen where I'm, becoming aware of my body, I'm becoming aware of my emotions, I'm becoming aware of my habits, and realizing that I wanted to change things about my life and the way that I approached situations in it. So throughout my 20s, I had a really, really committed journaling practice. And then only in the last kind of several years, I decided to really dedicate to my practice to make it really deep and introspective and examine my beliefs and values and, the long-held frames of thinking that I have inherited from my parents or my childhood, and go through all of that deep inner healing and values-based work that has been really instrumental in making massive changes in my life. And it is quite a full-on confronting process at times. But what happens is you get to know what your triggers are on a really, really deep level, and you get to change the patterns which are going to be unconscious for a lot of us until we really start to dive into that. And then you also get to add on those things like cycle tracking and, addressing these triggers emotionally before they, come to the surface, and really that deep emotional healing work. So it's not necessarily what everyone looks forward to doing all the time, but at this point of my life, journaling went from being a childhood comfort to being a really therapeutic tool for my own self-coaching.
That's fascinating. And it started from just something that you did and has really obviously been part of who you are today, essentially. I think it's fascinating that you found a way that it's self-exploration, which a lot of people aren't really privy to that unless they're in a therapeutic process or they're, the wheels have totally fallen off and they've gone to get help. And that's when we go, okay, you need to write about it. I think if we were, if it was something that we did as a standard, just jot a few words down every night just about the day, just what comes up as well is, it's pretty fascinating. As far as goal setting, what's your process around that? If we come into 2022 and we've got, work goals, or we've got food goals or weight goals or whatever it is, I think they said about 56% of people make a health-based New Year's resolution. It might even be higher than that. And by January, 35% of those have forgotten totally. So how do we do this in a way that we don't lose our way overall?
My process of doing this is to first start with the end goal, and that is connecting with your best day ever, essentially. It's, visualizing your best health, your best life, whatever it is that you're desiring as your end result, and then feeling what it's like in your meditation or your visualization or, your imagination, to what that would be like having achieved that. And then from there, what massive intentional action can I take every day to get to that point? So you work backwards. So you go, all right, I want to have this as my end goal. I want to feel like this in my body. And it's not all just about aesthetics. It's about how you feel. I want to feel strong. I want to feel lean. I want to feel flexible. I want to feel vibrant. I want to feel energetic, whatever it is. And then, you start with your little steps every day to add up to the end. Once you've got that end goal and you know what you need to do every day, then it's that journaling every single day, reflecting on, did I do those things? What can I do better tomorrow? Having that self-compassion to go, okay, look, we got 70% of the way there today. That's great. That's 70% further than I would have gone before. Let's try for 75 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be January 1st. It can be any day you like. I love making birthday resolutions. I love, reflecting on my goals every month, every week, even just for 5 minutes, and just go, hey, what can I do better this week? And when you've got that opportunity that you create for yourself through the journaling practice or whatever reflection practice you have, then you really get to, see that course correction happen in real time. We can go, all right, well, it's not 3 weeks down the track and, oh, that's right, I had that New Year's resolution I've forgotten about. It's, oh, yep, we went off course a little bit here. We're going to veer back on track before we get too far off. And then there's less correcting that I've got to do later. And it makes all the difference.
And I think that's it, is not looking at, well, I only made 70% and now I'm a failure. It's more, I look at this, I did 70%, and the other 30%, what do I do with that? And that, I think, sparks you more for learning and taking opportunity from this moment, rather than, oh, that's it, I give up, I didn't make 100% of what I wanted to do, because no one's perfect. And it's particularly in this, food and exercise and health realm, it's habit change is pretty tricky. And I think particularly after weight loss surgery, when there's so big an expectation on making grave change pretty quickly, this kind of thing is a really pivotal tool, I suppose, for helping that process. It's like I got through breakfast and lunch, and every day is different. Some people have had bypass and some have had sleeve, and some days you can eat really well and other days it just doesn't sit well, or it's too hard, or it's I can eat too much, and that's a nice way of actually tracking kind of what's going on as well. And I think not looking at every single day as a did I make it, did I make it, did I make it? It's like then you've got a broader kind of overview of the time, because really it's a week, isn't it, at least, where you can say, well, 5 days out of this week I did really well, and 2 days I just wasn't hungry, or eggs didn't sit very well, or whatever it is. And then you can say, well, I'm doing pretty well. I've got 5 days out of 7 that I'm nailing it. What else can I do? Or if it's 2 days out of 7 and you're hardly eating anything, that's when you go, okay, I need to check in with my team. I'm not managing to meet my needs, even nutritionally. So it's those kind of things that will start to ring alarm bells a bit earlier. And that's kind of where we go, is that when things are changing, particularly a couple of years after surgery, when hunger returns, and often that's the time when carbs have crept back in as a major part of each meal, and hunger is there and it's all feeling pretty spooky. And sometimes it's when there's an expected regain. So that's an unsettling time as well. Even if you've absolutely killed it for 18 months and you've met your weight loss target and everything's gone really well, there is an expected regain, which is like your new set point where your body's trying to work out where you belong there. And that's unsettling for someone who's been like, I need to lose weight. And then suddenly there's a gain. It's like, that kind of introspection of, and coaching yourself, I suppose, this is normal, this is expected, but also keeping it in check.
And it's like, it's exactly that reason that this tool is really great for people who've, gone through the bariatric journey and any other weight loss surgeries. It's, the emotional side of it is not always addressed in a way that is really sustainable and really tackles, what's going on. The journey is really unique. And when you get to that point where you're finding that new set point, then there's so many emotions that come up. There's so many triggers, and quite often it's overlooked. And people find themselves, getting really down because they've had all of this time where they're kind of like, all right, yep, I'm adjusting to my new physical form. And then suddenly things are different again. And the body is trying to, reset itself and change in a way that's not necessarily welcome. So it's great to have that tool on hand so that you can then go, all right, well, I'm feeling this, these were my triggers previously for different food choices. Here's the whole picture of things, and you can work through that before it starts to get really detrimental to your health and your goals.
That's a good point. And it is that big snapshot of time where if you have kept a journal from beginning to wherever you're at the moment, it's really good to go back. And sometimes you're beating yourself up 6 months down the track. I hear it all the time. I've only lost 20 kilos. And I'm like, God, that's incredible. And it doesn't matter that it's, early stages or whatever it is, it's still 20 kilos. But some are really disappointed with that. But looking back at...
Exactly, over that long period of time, it's like, all right, well, you've been on this path for 5 years, and then you're looking ahead at the small amount that you've got left to go, and then you've got this large period of time where not only have you achieved this goal, but you've had all of these other challenges that you've managed to deal with until you get to this point today. Like, that's incredible. And now it's like, don't beat yourself up over this tiny little bit or a tiny little roadblock or something like that.
Yeah. And I think too, where human brain is very geared to forget about pain, like when we're in pain or we have something that's causing us pain and upset, it's like right here in front of us and we can't seem to see past it. It's like when you got back pain and you think you're just never going to walk again. It's like, oh my God, it takes over and you're exhausted, and it's like everything you think about is you have to think through the pain to actually even think about doing whatever it is you need to do in that day. So weirdly, when that pain starts to dissipate, we forget that it was even there. And I worked in sports injuries and that sort of stuff for many years. And people would walk in and they'd be, oh my God, I can't walk. And then a week later I'd go, so how are things going? Oh yeah, it's still not that good. And I'm like, well, can you touch this and can you do that? And like, oh yeah. Like they forgot within a week that they couldn't do that last week. So unless I brought back the pain, it was like it was never there in the first place. So it's the same thing, is when we're dealing with all these things that cause us upset or difficulty or we're working with, once they're gone, it's quite interesting that it does kind of, you forget how it was for you, back in the day.
Yeah. And you know what, it's, I have a, I'm not a regular practice of it, but I do from time to time go back through my journals and have a look and see where I was at a particular time, or look for, particular insight on situations or, what have you. And sometimes you look back and you think, oh my God, that wasn't even a big deal. I don't even know why I was, stressing about that. And sometimes you see, oh my goodness, I have done so well since then and just overcome so much, and like the strength of it. And I think when we were finishing our degrees, I was going through a divorce, and to go through a really intensive clinical program during a really intensive emotional time, looking back on it, I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And then I look at my journal and I think, whoa, like that was actually quite full on.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Working, studying and dealing. And I wonder if that's also part of it, is that you do put it on the page and you can put it somewhere and then you go back to it. So it's almost like a compartmentalizing way of dealing with, I'll just put this here. And we don't realize how much that does. It's like talking to someone, isn't it? Just putting it out there without judgment.
I consider it to be almost like an emptying of your brain, or clearing out the white noise. Or, my journaling process looks something like doing a couple of pages in my journal, just getting all of the stuff out, or, finding myself in an emotional time where I'm getting really frustrated and I just kind of empty it out. And then I kind of go, all right, well, once that emptying is done, then I start asking myself particular coaching questions where it's like, how am I feeling? What do I need? How do I want to feel? What would the best version of myself do in this situation? Wow. What do I feel grateful for, like really properly grateful for, and things like that.
Yeah.
But you kind of need to get all of it's like opening the tap and getting the stagnant water out before the fresh stuff starts to float.
That's a good point. And I think you're right, unless that's coming out. And we used to do that as a writing process, is just, we call it brain dump. So you just dump and dump and dump. The other thing is, we also have done that in the non-dominant hand. So the hand, I'm left-handed. So there's a process you can do where you have a particular question or an issue or whatever it is. And this one, try this at home. And then you write the question in your normal writing hand, and then you swap the pen over and just let your brain let it out. Whether it's legible or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just the process of removing that. And that switches you into a bit of an unconscious part of your brain. And that's always surprising. Like what comes out of that process is so deep and so rich. So you can say, you've had a bad day and you've eaten, a block of chocolate and you've done all the wrong things. And that's a good time to sit down and go, why am I doing this? What does this actually mean for me? Yeah. What's driving that? And it's almost like, who are you? Because it's another part of you. And it's like often it's an unhealed part of the child self that's tucked away in there. And it's acting up, basically, looking for attention or looking for soothing or looking for love or whatever it is. And that's a really good way to access it. I've done that in the past and kind of gone, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's a really great practice to speak to yourself with kindness and compassion. If you are considering that this, figure that has acted up in this scenario is actually, like the 5-year-old version of you, or at whatever stage that emotion, was coming up, then, would you talk to a 5-year-old in the way that we talk to ourselves sometimes? Like, probably not. So, it's a nice way to kind of go, all right, well, little me, what do you need? What's going on? How come we acted this way today? Like, how can I help you today? And approaching it with a little bit more kindness and compassion, and starting to retrain how we talk to each other and talk to ourselves.
Yeah, big time. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is success, and how so many people are we've never had success before in this realm, perhaps. So we've fought and fought and fought and fought. And a lot of the times, you know, obesity is a condition that starts from a pretty young age generally, unless it's kind of injury related and that sort of thing. And so we've had a lot of losses in this area, and suddenly we start to win, and you hear so many people who are like, oh my God, my brain's not catching up with, like, I catch myself in the mirror and I don't even know who it is. Is journaling a good way of actually coaching that kind of, it's almost like a mismatch between who is on the outside now and what's going on in the inside?
Yeah, I love this question so much, because there's so much that you can do in this space. And there's also a lot to be really mindful of. One is that when we're feeling scared, sometimes it's not that there's fear, it's that there's something new, and our brains are not wired for it to be comfortable and familiar. So, sorry, my cat's scratching at the door, so it's distracting me a little bit.
I have to let them in.
Oh, no. We don't need that. So basically what happens is that our brains aren't used to it, and they want to return to a familiar state, which is the state where we're making choices that aren't ideal and we're not succeeding. And so our brain will unconsciously self-sabotage. And when I say brain, I mean, it's that, you know, our not so ideal version of ourselves. Will sabotage to try and take us back to a familiar state where we're, you know, not where we want to be.
Yeah.
So journaling is a really great way to catch those self-sabotaging behaviors, you know, and start to coach ourselves out of those sort of things. But also when we achieve our goals and when we're starting to make positive choices and things like that, we're not very good at celebrating them. So one of the things that I really encourage my clients to do in their reflections every week is to start celebrating their wins. And that's small wins, compliments, you know, encouraging words that people have said to them, or, you know, big achievements or anything. Just, you know, as much as you can, start celebrating even just progress. And progress is particularly important to celebrate because it starts to encourage us and give that, you know, good feeling chemicals run through the brain and reinforcing that those are the right choices to be making. That they're continuing down that path is the right thing to do. And, you know, journaling is a really great way for us to go, all right, well, I'm feeling a little bit down today. I don't feel so much like the best cheerleading version of myself. So I'm going to go back through my journal and find those times that can remind me that I'm really capable and can remind me that I can do this. And, you know, maybe I'm having an off day today, but I have evidence here in front of me that it is possible.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? And I do think the inner critic runs the show a lot of the time. And I think that's when we do get that taste of success and we've, you know, met our goal weight or our health goal or whatever it is, we're not in pain anymore. And I don't want to always talk about weight because I think it's yes about that, but it's more about what we gain as far as freedom and flexibility and, you know, access to playing with kids. And I think that's another important thing, is to remember that if you put it as a weight loss goal, is that exciting enough? Is that what you wanted? Is it looking at, yes, you want weight loss, but what does that also mean? And having, you know, 8 little things that come off that word, that means that you've got, you know, fun with friends and family, and you can, you know, some people couldn't get on a plane. Some people couldn't. One woman, I'll tell you a story, was in a car accident and she'd had her surgery 18 months beforehand, and they're talking about non-scale victories. So it's like, what has come out of your weight loss surgery that is not from getting on the scales? This one was, I drove my car and I had an accident and the car rolled, and she said I could just wind down the window and climb out of the car. And she said 18 months before that, I would have been trapped in the vehicle and, you know, unable to get out because it would have been around me and I was big enough that I was stuck. And I just think that's a bit of a win. So it's like, not always, it doesn't show up in the way that you always thought it would. And I think that's really nice to write those sorts of things down, is what surprises you about now, what's happening for you and how you're feeling and new confidence. And, you know, we're talking last week about hair loss. I did a podcast with my hairdresser actually, and we were talking about what comes from, you know, yes, there's a time where there's hair loss, but also you see down the track women who've trimmed down and they're feeling fabulous, and they've changed their hair color and they're doing things that are, exude more confidence. And those are the sorts of things that you'd write. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important to keep it in check.
Yes, I use a framework called Toward and Away motivation in this scenario, where as instinctive creatures, we want to get away from something that is causing us pain or danger, like a big fire. Back when we were cave people, we're trying to get away from like a wild animal or a fire or something like that. But as soon as we get just enough away from the danger, the motivation to keep going isn't there anymore. And so if we're instead going towards the goal that we want to achieve, then we're not going to lose our focus until we get to it. Whereas if you keep going just far enough out of the danger, then the kind of motivation to move is no longer there. So that's why I always say to people, what is it that we're aiming for rather than what is it that we're trying to get away from?
Running from. And that might be a positive.
Exactly. And when we frame goals positively, it means that we can say, all right, I'm trying to get to, having enough energy to run after my kids. I'm trying to get to, running a marathon. I'm trying to get to saving up for a house deposit, or, whatever your goal is, whether it's health or otherwise. And it gives us something that we have in front of us, and it's always going to be in front rather than behind.
That's a good point. I wrote a blog about goal setting just at the end of the year, and we put it in the group a couple of times. It's on the website. There's a whole blog section on the Be and Multi website, and it was all about that and setting SMART goals. So they're, specific. They're, I can't remember the acronym for it, of course, SMART, and it's in the blog. But it's making sure they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're time bound. So it's all of those things, but also looking at how you're saying it. Like, I don't want to be this is more like reframing it. And I did put an example in that article of like negative language, and really being aware of how we're framing things. I don't want to, most people who jump into our group who are just about to have weight loss surgery are like, this needs to work, this can't not work. And I'm like, oh my God, please change it around. So it's like, I'm ready for this, and I'm making the changes that are necessary, and I'm open to learning about what we need to know to make these behavioural changes. So this will be really easy for me. So it's those kind of things that I think that's where we fall down to, is in the framing of the goal and our negative connotations on it. So it's looking at, I don't want to regain weight. It's like, well, how can I phrase that in a way that is positive and will stick as well, and not kind of, because the brain will basically hear the don't and just take you down that path anyway, and that's where sabotage comes up. Exactly. So it is important to keep that positive slant on that as well.
Yeah, and journaling is a really great way to do that, because you can see where you've written things in a negative frame and practice rewriting it in a positive way. And then, it's almost like writing your own affirmations, where it's like, I am going to maintain my strongest form. I am going to, keep up my energy. I'm going to, keep working towards my marathon. I'm going to keep, doing all these things. I'm going to, really nurture and nourish my body with all of the healthy habits that I've gained in the last 12 months, or what have you. So when you've got these tools at hand, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about your new challenge?
Yes.
Because this is how this all came about. I'm about to do a live on all the journaling and food diaries, and I get this thing in my inbox and think that'd just be so perfect. So it's just a marriage made in heaven. So this is your year of really putting your efforts into helping people with habit change. You've put in a 12 I want to say 12 weeks, and it's not. It's a 21-day challenge.
It's nice and short. It's a 21-day journaling challenge, and I created it because I wanted to provide a really easy start for people to start journaling, doing a reflective process for themselves, trying out different things that would work for them. And, the first first day is literally just a Dear Diary format, and we work onwards from there. So I created it to be literally just a few journaling prompts and a bit of background every day, and you can take as much or as little as you like from each one. And it's all free, and I've got some bonuses in there as well, and a lot of it's really related to, you know, being a bit kinder to ourselves, going a bit inwards and starting to get to know ourselves on a deeper level and reaching a lot of these goals that we have in mind. So, you know, I've got lots of great prompts in there. It's an amalgamation of different coaching prompts and things that have worked really well for myself, and frameworks that we've got for success. There's some gratitude practice in there, and, you know, some of the Harvard studies on journaling and gratitude has shown incredible changes for positive mindset, and, you know, dealing with anxiety and stress and depression and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to journaling, and this is a really nice way to just kind of dip the toe in without, you know, paying for it, and you get a lot of guidance and great value out of that. So that's I've got the link for it via my Instagram, which is Healthy Party Girl, and I'm just running it through email. So you just get an email every morning, and you can log on and do your prompts and then get on with your day. So super easy.
And if we want to take it a little step further, are you coaching one-on-one? Are you doing that kind of consulting at the moment as well?
Yes. So I work with clients usually on a 12-week package. And so we can work with health goals, we can work with personal goals, financial goals, career goals, whatever you like. And I'm currently putting together a bit of a group program for goal setting and achieving. So that will be coming a little bit later in the year. But at the moment, I'm doing my journaling program and one-on-one coaching. And that's all available at the moment.
Brilliant. And backed with evidence-based nutritional support. We work with the holistic form of clinical nutrition. So our degree was nutritional medicine and dietetics. And what that means is basically we look at the body as a whole, which is a beautiful marriage where you've come up with this. You're probably one of the ones who has a greater insight into that kind of bigger picture of coaching and the combination of those kind of things. But we basically look at what's going on, which systems are not working, which nutrients do those systems require to function well. And it's not that the nutrients fix everything, it's that the nutrients support those systems back to health so that your body does the job of healing as well. So we look at all those kind of things back from, you know, to childhood illness, family history, what's going on now, any, you know, surgeries, that kind of stuff, and considerations around that. Most of the recommendations we made are based on blood tests, so we don't just stab in the dark and guess at things. And we give kind of lifestyle advice, and also kind of a whole plan around how do we get over these hurdles and basically let good health come to the fore again. And along the way we get the psychological, which is always what I like to showcase in our podcasts and our live sessions, is just how important that mindset part is. If we're ignoring that, all the meal plans in the world are not going to crack it. They're good and it's important, and your food needs to be right, but it also needs to be driven by behaviour change and good support in that way as well. Does anyone have any questions? You're all pretty quiet and there's many of you. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute your microphone and jump in. Usually pretty quiet at this time of night. No, it doesn't seem there.
And I think quite a week for everybody.
I know, I'm sort of dipping in and out of holiday mode, and there's pinging works coming in, and I'm like, I'll get to that. So January is a bit like that. I think we set all these, and that's the other thing, we set January as the beginning of the year, and I think it's really February, and I don't actually know when this year's going to start. So we'll hang in there and wait for that.
Yeah.
We just got told our kids are at home from January the 31st. And I'm like, they've been home since November. So there's a lot going on. And always reach out in the group if you need. What are the best tracking apps you like? There's a good question. For as far as food tracking, or is there one that's with food and emotions and all that sort of stuff as well? I haven't seen one. Of you, Kerry?
No, but there is an app. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called One Day or something like that. I'd have to find out, and I can let you know where it's. Maybe it's one page or something, where it's like an app where you just put in a few thoughts every day. So it's not as full on and dedicated as journaling, but it does give you an opportunity to kind of just, give a few cliff notes as to, how the day went down. So if that's something that, that's day one. Yes.
Is it day one?
Day one, yeah.
I'm the quickest Googler in the world. I can tell you that.
And so, that has helped some people get started. I do believe in the power of pen and paper because it starts to rewire your neurological pathways. So that's really beneficial, especially for people who are neurodiverse, like myself. I have ADHD. I need to write things down. It actually cements it in my brain. So, always recommend the pen and paper, but start any way you can.
Absolutely. And I'd like the key to, you need to write this down. Don't trust yourself. You need to write this down. No, I can remember that. I do it all the time. It's like, no, I can remember that. I've actually got, and it's game changing, and for neurodivergent people, it's called Remarkable 2. Of course, it's not on my desk because I've been away, and it's magical. It's like a digital notepad. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, and I always keep meaning to get one and have a look, but good old pen and paper works just fine for me. I'm paranoid about the battery dying because I've forgotten to charge it.
Yeah, that's
that. That would be me.
That's me. I have 3 chargers so that everywhere I go regularly, that'll charge. It lasts probably about over a week. But what it is like a grey tablet that you can actually write on. It feels like pen and paper. And then if I'm in a meeting, I write everything down. So that actually locks it into my brain because I've handwritten it. Then I email that to myself. So it becomes the to-do list and it's in my handwriting. So I'm like, I recognize that. I better action it. So then I go back to my desk and it's right in front of me. Whereas if I put something in a book or I put it out of sight, it's gone forever as far as my brain's concerned. Exactly. So I have to have some way of it shoving itself in my face one more time. But that's been brilliant because you can set up a reminder to write all your notes in your Remarkable and then send it on somewhere as well. And it's got I could take all my client notes in there. I need to write, and that's been really key for me to remembering, what we've talked about in sessions and that sort of stuff, but everything goes in there. And because it was not cheap, I won't leave it behind. So it means I'm not likely to lose it. Whereas Notepad, I'm like, it was only $1.50. I'll just put that there for now and I'll come back to it later and it's gone. So it's, a bit more accountability. Spend the big bucks to keep yourself accountable. So I've put in the links, Kerry's email address, I hope you don't mind, and links to Instagram and website as well. One more question, is there a recommended support group as far as these sorts of things go for goal setting, journaling, that sort of thing?
There's probably a lot of them. And a lot of different groups would have their own version of it depending on the setting. So there's, people's Facebook groups and things like that. I have been toying with the idea of having a Facebook group. I've got a bit of Facebook group fatigue at the moment, but that doesn't mean everyone does. So I am conscious of that. Look, if that's something that would be useful for people, then, I'm more than happy to facilitate. Yeah. Maybe that's the prompt I needed.
You never know. This year is turning things around, isn't it? The other thing is in our group this month, we've got a download that's like, set your goals and then share them in the group. And it is about accountability and inspiring others. A lot of what we do in our group is about accountability, but also inspiration. So the whole community comes together to inspire one another and not kind of, not kind of talk about weight loss as such, but look at other goals and kind of push each other along and then meet people who have similar goals and discuss them as well. So there's always room for that there too. But yeah, I'd love to have your expertise on top as well, which would be great.
Well, I will set that up, Karen, and Jackie, I'll let you know when that's all up.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah. Who needs to sleep? And so I think, what else have I got? Could you please remind me how to access your 21 days?
Because all of the things going on at the moment. So I was on a double tomorrow and not anymore. So I've got plenty of time to do this. And I think the universe is definitely telling me that it's time to give up my side fun job that I do to keep my toes in that industry. But it's it's definitely time to.
Very hard industry at the moment.
It is, yeah, and that's it. So I've got a Linktree link on my Instagram, or you can just, I think it's I've just popped the Linktree link directly in the chat there. So great. On my Linktree, I'm having my website redeveloped right now. So this is the best way. I've got a Calendly where you can have a chat to me about doing a 12-week package program, one-on-one, or if you just feel like you want to have a brainstorm about one thing, you just need a little bit of help with something, that I've got I'm doing an Omicron sale.
Oh, yay.
So you can get a consult and some resources, and I'll give you a quick little follow-up a couple of weeks later to see how you're going as well. So it's just like a single session plus a little bonus time. So all that stuff's on my Linktree, plus the 21-day journaling challenge is on there. So you can just pop your details in the form, and I think it'll send you, I think the first one, they go out first thing in the morning, so you can start whenever. And it goes for 21 days, and you can get as much or as little out of it as you like. And along the way, I'll give you some more information about how you can work with me further.
That's great. Thank you. Wasn't that fortuitous?
So good.
Team. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This will be recorded, edited, and we'll post it again during the week. So if there's anything you want to go over, you're welcome to do that. It often goes out via email as well to anyone who registered. I don't know if it goes to everybody who registered or those who didn't make it to the actual live thing. So I'll leave that in the hands of the others. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. Thank you.
That is
for
great.
Yeah, I know. We love that. So stick with us in January, because it is about goal setting, and remember to share your goals, because making noise about goals is actually something that embeds them as well. And then we'll go over them towards the end of the month as well. And I'm going on holidays, so I'll see you all in 10 days. But I can't keep out of the group, so you'll probably see me there anyway. So welcome to the new year, everybody, and thanks for joining us. And thank you so much, Kerry. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for having me. Good luck with your goals, everybody.
See ya.
Now let's take a look at what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
And
Tomorrow on Sunrise, start building your